Hello and welcome to Odds Premier League Match Day 10. We have Tom Rennie ready with his kit. There is no doubt. Which team do you support, Tom Rennie?
Yeah, I had to wear the kit today because the Conference League trophy is in Romford Town Centre at the West Ham shop today, and I've just taken my dad down there to get our photographs taken with it. And I've never taken the kit off because they made me buy it. They drew me into buying it, and so now I'm getting my wear out of it. What of it?
I hope we can see this picture, for instance, in your Twitter account.
It's all over. Search for Thomas J. Rennie, folks. You'll find it on all the socials.
Well, let's see if West Ham, they are able to beat Everton on Sunday. We will listen to Tom's tips in a bit. In the meantime, don't forget to press the like, subscribe, let us know your tips for this match day. And now let's go on with the show. And also, don't forget that we have a special offer with 1xBet, so you can register having 130% of welcome bonus. Just use our promo code and the link below. Well, Tom, the match day starts on Friday with the last team to play the previous match day. Tottenham and the leader, they are playing on Monday and on Friday, Crystal Palace. Tottenham, this is the best start for a new manager in the Premier League. 23 points in 9 games. Postecoglou breaking every single record. Let's see if they can keep the record against Crystal Palace. They were thrashed by Newcastle in the previous match day. Only 1 goal they scored in the last 4 games for Crystal Palace.
Yeah, tricky one this, I think, for both teams, really. Look, Crystal Palace, on paper, I think, should lose this. And I think the fact there's no Michael Olise still, we've still got Noah Bere Eze. These are the 2 best players at the club. They are the 2 best attacking players. They are the 2 most creative players. They are the 2 players that were going to make up for the huge loss of Wilfried Zaha, who's gone off to Turkish football this year and scoring at Old Trafford in the Champions League, of course. So that was always going to be a massive loss for them. But the 2 players they already had to make up for that loss have been missing. And there's been no real attacking force about Palace all season. And that's reflected in the fact they've had 4 home games and only scored 3 goals at Selhurst Park this season. They all came in the victory over Wolverhampton Wanderers. Only 7 goals across the season. That is the biggest problem for Crystal Palace right now. And defensively, they've got a couple of good centre-halves in Anderson and Gay, but I think there's been no protection in front of them, certainly with Decore injured. At the moment, Crystal Palace have got all sorts of problems. So, you know, they are capable of winning a game like this, but right now, Tottenham look irresistible. I was at the game on Monday night against Fulham, where at times, Fulham, you thought they could get something from this game. Willian on the break, Vinicius with a nice header. There was a good save from Vicario at one point during the game at 0-0, and you thought, actually, Fulham might be able to do something, because you do get gaps the way Tottenham play, but once they'd scored the first one, once they'd scored the second one, total cruise control, really, really impressive, and, I mean, look at the record. Best start for many years for Tottenham Hotspur, best start for a Premier League team for the best part of 20 years, as you mentioned, 7 wins, 2 draws, no defeats, 20 goals scored. Son looks incredible, Maddison looks incredible. Nothing but positives for Tottenham. And all the new signings, we mentioned Maddison, Mickey van der Ven, the goalkeeper as well, Udogie at left back, all coming in, settling in really quickly, and there's a feeling of momentum around Tottenham right now. They are getting a lot of really winnable games, I've got to say. I don't expect them to be champions come the end of this season. I don't want to take away from this great start. But apart from Liverpool, where, of course, they ended up finishing with 9 men, Liverpool, and having someone, a 1 goal wrongly disallowed, and 2 people sent off as mentioned, and the Arsenal game, which they drew. Beyond that, no great test this season. When they played Man United, it was their worst moment of the campaign, and 6 of the victories have been against teams I'd expect to finish in the bottom half of the table. So this is another one of those games. All those games so far they've gone on to win. They're going to go on to this to win this one. How do they do it? Well, straight up Tottenham wins no good to you, right? Because right now, top of the table, you're looking at under 2-1, which is a waste of time. You can get over 2-1. In fact, 3.5 on the decimals for Tottenham win with a -1 handicap. That's only 2-0. There's people out there think they're going to win 2-0 and they're capable. I certainly do. I think that's a bit conservative almost for Tottenham Hotspur in this game. So take that. That's top tip at 3.5. If you feel a little bit less daring, Tottenham win under 3.5 goals in the match brings you in at 2.88. That's just under 2-1. I think it will get there by the time we get to Friday. And it's worth, too, looking at Son to score, Maddison to score, Son to assist, Maddison to assist. Double up a combination of those with a Tottenham win. You'll make some money here.
I'm sure you enjoyed watching live Maddison, a player that you really liked. By the way, Leicester City, they are flying absolutely in the championship. 11 points of advantage with the third in the standings. Well, Tottenham, they suffered in the last trip. It was against Luton Town. They were down to 10 men, but at the end, they got the victory. Perhaps it's a kind of similar game, although Crystal Palace, of course, they have way better players. These are two London teams, although they are really far from each other. On Saturday, we have a real derby in West London, Chelsea, Brentford, at least because these two stadiums are very close by. Chelsea with a really good first half, Tom, against Arsenal. At the end, they only could draw. Mudryk scoring goals finally. And Brentford, I think, is the kind of team, no, like Fulham. They are winning the teams that they have to win, and they are losing the teams that the games they have to lose. So I guess this should be not a flashy victory, but perhaps a Chelsea victory, 1-0, 2-0, something like this.
Yeah, look, I expect Chelsea to win. I think you're absolutely right. Really impressed by parts of the performance against Arsenal. As you mentioned, the first half was really good. Great to see Mykhailo Mudryk having a bit of a moment as well after being a bit of a punching bag for the best part of a year during his time in English football. Scored against Fulham, scored against Arsenal, scored for his national team for Ukraine. In the European Championship qualifiers against Malta, I think that great goal was. So he's playing really well, and that's great for Chelsea. Him and Cole Palmer and another as a front three looks quite good. If Armando Broja, whatever he wants this week, is fit, then I think he'll probably come in to replace Raheem Sterling in what looks like Pochettino's preferred front three. So really impressed by Chelsea, and it's worth noting the goals as well. 4 against Burnley, 2 against Arsenal, 2 against Fulham in the previous game. Just starting to rack up the goals, getting the creativity. So that's good. Defensively, still look a bit poor. I think Thiago Silva is struggling in a back four. I think Disasi, when fit, it looks pretty weak. I think Cucurella at right back is not working. And Robert Sanchez, I mean, look, he was the backup at one point at Brighton to Matt Ryan, I think, before he became the number one goalkeeper there and got displaced himself. You know, he is a backup goalkeeper at best, Robert Sanchez. He is someone that clearly can't concentrate for the entirety of a game. I'm not sure he's amazing at making saves, and his best attribute is that he's actually quite a good sort of midfielder, anchorman type, and he even blew that last weekend with that pass directly to Declan Rice. So I think there are issues defensively at Chelsea, but offensively quite good. For Brentford, you know, they're not going to go down this season because it's I think, quite weak league on the whole. But I think in another year, they might struggle, especially when you consider Ivan Toney remains out, David Raya has been sold, Rico Henry, ever present for like 4 years, has got injured, Kevin Schade is injured. Worth noting, Mikkel Damsgaard as well, Aaron Hickey is out. So a load of problems for Thomas Frank to try and solve, but the one thing they are never short on is monstrous desire to get something from games. And you saw that last week against a really poor Burnley. They had the desire to win, they had the physicality to win the game, and went on to win it comfortably. So, tricky one this. I think Chelsea right now in a really good moment. My top tip is for them to win, but I don't think they will thrash Brentford. So I think you called it absolutely right when you came to me with this. Chelsea to win under 2.5 goals. That's 1-0 or 2-0. Brings you in at 4 on your decimals, 3-1. That's really nice. I'll take that. But I tell you what, I also wouldn't discount a draw here. A straight up draw, you get at 4. Now, I like that. I still think Chelsea are my top tip. If you're picking out a draw this weekend, Brentford will fight and scrap for every single ball, and that could be a problem for Chelsea.
Well, the odds are really similar to the game we previously analyzed, Crystal Palace Tottenham. So if you go for a draw in these two games and one of them end up in a draw, you make money because the odds are very good, around 4. You have to be to dare much more to go for a draw. In the next one, Arsenal, Sheffield United, the draw here is 10. It's really difficult to find good odds here. The only question is if Arsenal would do some changes because they are traveling to Seville in the Champions League, and this game should be a really easy one, Tom, or you expect Arsenal to thrash, destroy, smash Sheffield United?
I won't waste too much time on this one because it's an Arsenal win, so you've got to find a way to make some money off an Arsenal win. I think you're absolutely right. There will be some changes, but even then, if the front three is Eddie Nketiah, Trossard and another, Nelson maybe, I still think they beat Sheffield United quite comfortably. Arsenal, I don't think they'll make too many defensive changes. Midfield might rotate a bit, but Declan Rice will play because he plays every minute of every game, as he should. So, they're going to win this game. Briefly on Sheffield United, a valiant effort against Man U at the weekend, but the loss, as we predicted, did happen. In the end, I keep going back to that quote from Thomas Frank, the Brentford manager from a couple of years ago, after his first game in the Premier League with Brentford. And someone asked him, what's the difference between the Championship and the Premier League? And he said, the boxes. The boxes are the difference. You can run as hard, you can pass the ball, you can do all this stuff. But defending in your box and scoring in their box, that's the difference. That's why it's the big money league. That's why it's the big players in the world in the Premier League. And that's why when they deliver, it means a lot. And Sheffield United simply do not have it. It's why they're going down, currently on course to be the worst team in Premier League history. They lose this game, and you've got to look at your handicap. So what do you do? Even -2 is useless here. So -3, that's a 3-0 or more for Arsenal. I'll take it. A -3 handicap. That's a 4-0 victory. 3.5. It seems a bit wild, but if you're going to bet on this game, it's the only way to make some money. -4 handicap brings you in at 7. That's a 5-0 thumping. I quite like that. To be a bit more conservative, Arsenal win with over 3.5 goals in the match brings you in at 2.1. Look, it's not great, but if you're taking that, it means you're not being particularly daring. But I'd also look here. I haven't got the odds for this today, but check it out as we get towards kickoff. To have 20 or more shots, Arsenal, in this game. That usually brings you in at around 4 or around 5. It's quite a daring bet. But I'd be looking at the shots market, the corners market, individual scorers market. Look for Eddie Nketiah. Look for Gabriel Martinelli if he plays at the weekend and not in midweek. But all sorts of handicaps, big Arsenal win.
Only 1 point for Sheffield United. There are 4 teams that they've been so poor in these first 9 games. One is Sheffield United, the other one is Luton Town. And the other 2 are Bournemouth and Burnley. And these 2 teams are meeting. So this is the relegation 6-pointer of the both teams to lose game. Tom, what is the angle here? Bournemouth, no victories this season. Burnley only beat Luton Town away.
Lost against Wolves last week as we predicted, Bournemouth. I think it wasn't quite going our way until the sending off of Lewis Cook for a headbutt, which was moronic. As Bournemouth were in a controlling position at that moment in time. I've seen Bournemouth a few times this season, and at times they play some nice football. At times you think, oh, this might work. But again, there's not a great deal of quality in this team. I really like the improvement in Dominic Solanke. His goal last week against Wolves was terrific, but Tavernier, Brooks, Billing, Cook... I don't think that's a particularly strong group going forward. Continuing to miss Tyler Adams, who's yet to make his debut. Across the back line, I don't think there's a Premier League quality defender in the bunch. And Neto in goal is making more mistakes than previously. So I think defensively, Bournemouth are poor. And if you're going to play an open, expansive game, which Iraola wants to do, then your defenders have got to be great. And they have not got good enough players. And that's the big problem. In terms of Burnley, it's almost a similar story, right? Going forward, some lovely little moments with Koleosho and Foster. And you think, oh, good players these. They can't defend. It's not a good enough defensive line. They've not got a good enough goalkeeper, and so they're going to concede goals. So I think this is going to be a classic relegation slugfest. I think goals at both ends. So I've got all sorts of both teams to score bets for you. But the first thing I'll say is draw. Draw, draw, draw. Screams draw this one. Take the draw on its own at 3.5. But then mix it up with both teams to score. So both teams to score and draw, 4.5. Both teams score and Bournemouth is 4. Both teams score and Burnley is 5.5. Go all sorts of both teams score. Go with your gut. Mine says draw.
And the last game on Saturday, whoa, be careful with this one, is Wolves Newcastle, because Wolves, they are getting competitive. It looks like this season they won't suffer as much as they did in the last one. In the last 4 games, 2 victories and 2 draws. And Newcastle, perhaps this is a tricky one because at home they are really strong, but they are coming after playing in the Champions League. So I'm not sure if you see trouble for Newcastle, a game that can give us a surprise. Wolves to draw, for instance, is 4.2.
Yeah, tricky game this. Briefly on Wolves, I picked them last week. I've worked with Gary O'Neill, as you know, and I picked him on one of our shows as our manager of the year last year because of the job he did with a really weak Bournemouth squad. Sacking him at Bournemouth, for anyone, no disrespect to Iriola, was moronic. He did a really good job and he was a really good coach and you should have kept him. And he's gone to Wolves who have got a better squad and he is delivering right now results where I don't think many of us thought Wolves would do much this year, but he's getting a tune out of Hwang Hee-chan, who looks like a top-level Premier League striker, really impressive. Pedro Neto being fit has made a massive change. And, one or two other players, Craig Dawson, I love Craig Dawson, terrific player. And I think there's a lot of positivity around Wolverhampton Wanderers, and a lot of that comes down to Gary O'Neill knowing how to get performances out of players that have underwhelmed in the past. Plus, a bit of fitness from Neto has not gone amiss. Look at their recent run of form as well. Terrific victory last week against Bournemouth. Great victory, of course, against Manchester City. Draw against Aston Villa. Drab game though it was. Villa, one of the best teams in the league this season, got something there. And if not for a sending off for them against Luton, they might have won that. So one of the form teams in the Premier League right now, plus scoring with regularity as well. They've scored in each of their last 5 games at least one goal. So I expect them to score here. The trouble is Newcastle United coming to town. Now, you've got that Champions League variable, sure, but look at their recent fixtures. Only one game of the season I think they haven't scored in. They've scored in each of their last 5 as well. 1 against Brentford, 8 against Sheffield United, 2 against Burnley, 2 against West Ham, 4 against Crystal Palace. So, again, goals, goals, goals here. I think both teams are going to score, so go with the both teams to score bet. It's reasonably low for both to pick a winner, but if you combine it with both teams to score, you'll make some money. Newcastle win, both teams score, 3.25.
Okay, goals at both ends in the Molinet Stadium. This is for the games we have on Saturday. On Sunday, we have another 5. First one is West Ham Everton. West Ham losing to Aston Villa. Away, they drew to Newcastle, so they are having a tough calendar, we have to say. Apart from these 2 games at home, they've been solid. Man City and Liverpool were the only ones winning in the last months. But Everton, Tom, I think they are improving. Even if they lost the derby, they look much more competitive in this stage of the season than in the first games.
Yeah, I agree with that. Look, I think West Ham have had a terrible start to the season in terms of the games they have played. Chelsea, Brighton, Liverpool, Man City, Aston Villa away from home, who have won 11 in a row at home. Really, really tough games, right? And they've come out of it with 4 victories. Those victories have come against Sheffield United and Luton, 2 of them, sure, but also Chelsea and Brighton. So, across those first 9, I'd expect them to have won 3 and they have won 4. So pretty decent, I think, from West Ham. It's this run of games which will define their season. They come alongside Europa League games. Olympiacos on Thursday is a slight variable here. Otherwise, I'd go for a home banker, frankly, for West Ham. We don't know as we record this what's happened on the Thursday, who's played or anything like that. So there could be a tiredness there. But this is the kind of game that David Moyes usually wins. I don't expect it to be a spectacular victory, but I do expect West Ham to be solid. I expect them to score probably a corner, and I expect them to win, as they won this game, I think 1-0 last season, a very similar scoreline. Solid, unspectacular, and I think West Ham, if they get 2 wins in the next 3, can really start to build on something this season. Should they fail to win any of the next 3, I think they missed a great opportunity to build on what's been a really good base, considering the fixtures for the start of this season. The only concern for West Ham, I think, is they've conceded too many goals. 16 conceded is really high for a David Moyes team across the first 9 games. Of course, 16 scored has dispelled that being a massive concern. I think they go back to the old ways here, keep it tight and win. West Ham win to 0 is 4. And I really, really like that. Not only because West Ham need a result like that, but also Everton, 9 goals scored this season, still nowhere near good enough. Didn't look even slightly like scoring a goal against Liverpool last week. I know they thrashed Bournemouth the game before that, but I think against a better team, they're going to struggle to create chances, even with the the return to fitness of Dominic Calvert-Lewin. So look, impressed in terms of improvement for Everton, but I still think they're a bottom 5 team. I still think West Ham are a top half, if not top 8 team. They'll want to be back in European football next season. West Ham win to 0. Also look for West Ham to score from a corner and win. That'll bring you in at around 3s or 4s. And West Ham to win with a -1 handicap. If you don't fancy that win to 0, also at 4. So a few low-scoring West Ham wins there.
Last season was 2-0, by the way. 2 seasons ago was 2-1 for West Ham. Then they play against Brentford. So these are 2 winnable games to be around the European spots, because this is the 10th match day. Tom, finally you allow me to talk about the standings, and from the 10th match day onwards. And Everton, they are 3 points away from Burnley, only 2 victories this season. Next game, I guess this is an easy one to put in your accumulator. Aston Villa, Luton Town, because Aston Villa at home, they are just perfect. The best team in the league so far, thrashing every single team. 4 games, 4 victories at home, 17 goals scored. So if you are looking for an Asian handicap game, Tom, this could be a good one.
Yeah, look, I think Aston Villa have been superb, and we keep saying it on this show, very un-Emery-like, the way they've played this season with this incredible reckless abandon. But, you know, I really watched the West Ham game at the weekend, and it's fascinating watching them because they're not actually as positive as we kind of think they are. But they take those moments brilliantly when they come. They do sit. They do try and absorb you. They press at the right moments. But when they win the ball back with John McGinn or Zaniolo or Douglas Luiz, the through ball to Watkins is often right on the money. And Ollie Watkins right now running at you is a nightmare for defenders. You know, even if he can't get around you, look at the third goal of the weekend just gone. It's really hard to beat Kurt Zouma in a one-on-one. So he just didn't try and do it. He shuffled and blasted in a really small area of the goal, left-footed top corner, only one place to score and only one way to score, pure power at full pelt, and he did it. Incredible, Ollie Watkins right now. So much good about Aston Villa. Defensively sound, midfield is strong and compact, the offense is incredibly vibrant, and they've got 2 or 3 real form players, specifically Luiz and Ollie Watkins. Briefly on Luton, what a comeback last week. Really upset my bet last week because I had Forest to win with a -1 handicap. Didn't see that 2-goal comeback coming. And maybe we should start thinking a bit more about the fight of Luton, getting them back in games. And maybe I will in future weeks. Really impressed by a couple of their performers last week. Certainly Tahith Chong in midfield. I thought he played well. Lockyer at centre-half. Leeds by example was captain. And I think that the goals they scored as well were really, really high quality, actually, Luton Town. Certainly, the goal that pulled them back in the game, I thought was really, really good from Ogbeni. And I think it was Adebayo who scored the late leveller. Good finishes. So maybe later down the line, I'll start picking a Luton win. Won't be this one. You mentioned the goals. Go for Villa win. The first time you can ever make some money here is a -2 handicap. That's 2.75. -3 handicap here. That's what I'll be looking at 5.5. Top tip, 5.5, -3 handicap. 6 against Brighton, 4 against West Ham. It's got to be likely here. And it's also worth, Luiz has scored 7 in 7 at home. Watkins on terrific form. Double it up with one or both of those to score, and that's how you make some money here.
Well, we have big favorites on Sunday in the home teams. Next one is the same, Brighton, Fulham, although this one could be much more balanced. Brighton, they are winless in 3, but also there is the factor of the Europa League. They have a tough game against Ajax at home, and Fulham, Tom, again, this is kind of the classic middle table team, beating the minor teams and losing to the top teams, similar to Brentford, but it looks like they put a fight in every single game, we have to say.
Yeah, look, for Brighton, look at the home form this season. 2 scored against Liverpool, 3 against Bournemouth, 3 against Newcastle, 1 against West Ham, 4 against Luton. Back them to score a few goals here. They'll rotate heavily from Thursday to the weekend, as the manager likes to do. So it could be Welbeck, could be Ferguson. You know, we just couldn't tell you at this moment in time because the rotation has been so heavy. But what we do know is they'll be full of energy, full of running. I know Solly March is injured, but another good player will come in to replace him, I'm sure. And look at the goal scoring. They're going to score goals. So whatever you do with this one, look at Brighton to score. And I went to Fulham on Monday, as I mentioned, and there's some good moments for them. I think they've got a couple of decent players, but there's no focal point. Vinicius is not good enough. He's not an adequate replacement at all for Mitrovic. Raul Jimenez, it's now like 30 games without a goal. He should never have been signed. He's gone at this level, unfortunately for him. So that was a poor signing. And beyond that, it's quite a functional team. Harrison Reed, João Palhinha, Lukic, they're good players, but they're not going to win you many games. So I'd go Brighton here, reasonably comfortable. Look at a -1 handicap at 2.38. I wouldn't go too bold, only because we don't know what's happened on the Thursday. But if they've come through that unscathed, maybe start looking at -2. That's a 3-0 victory. And as we've mentioned, they score a lot of goals at home, but Brighton win.
Well, from favorite at home, Brighton, Aston Villa, and then, of course, Liverpool. Even the odds are lower. Liverpool Forest. Liverpool also playing on Thursday, but they have an easy game at home in the Europa League. They are doing the job. They've won the 6 home games this season in all competitions. For Forest, they drew 4 of the last 5 games, only losing to Man City, Tom.
Yeah, look, Liverpool been terrific start of this season, scored plenty of goals. For me, certainly in the title race, home form, brilliant. 3 scored against West Ham, 2 against Everton, 3 against Villa, 3 against Bournemouth. So a few goals to be scored in this game against Forest as well. And you make a great point on Nottingham Forest. They have improved from last season, and they can certainly grind out a result. But away from home, it is worth noting the entirety of last season, 1 victory away from home. This season, they have won away from home. That was that 1-0 victory against Chelsea a couple of months ago. But still, away from home, the odds and averages show you they're not a particularly good team. They don't pick up enough results on the road. So, despite some improvements, Forest, I really like Murillo at the back. I think the midfield is really strong. I think they can score goals. I like the Gibbs-White, Alanga group of players behind whatever striker they use. Chris Wood scored last week and it was impressive. So, they are a good team and they'll stay up with ease, but they ain't going to win here. Liverpool to win without conceding, similar to last weekend. Liverpool to win to 0, 2.38. To win over 3.5 goals in the match, same odds, 2.38. A -2 handicap brings you at 2.88. We're getting there towards 2-1 if you start looking at things like that. And it's worth picking out Mo Salah as well. Did nothing last week, scored 2 goals, they won 2-0. He is just so sort of perfect for this team. At this moment in time, he doesn't need to do anything to be the match winner. He is an elite level, world-class, monumental talent, and I think Mo Salah will have an impact here. So Liverpool win and Salah to score also brings you in around the 2-1 mark.
Not sure, Tom, if this is a good week for betting in the Premier League. We have so many favorites playing at home with really low odds. Chelsea, Arsenal, Aston Villa, Brighton. Liverpool, for instance, also really favorite Tottenham and Newcastle playing away. And the same for Man City, the last game, the best one this match day, the Manchester Derby, Man United, Man City. Seeing Man United in the last weeks, I think you have to be really optimistic if you are a Red Devil fan to put your money on Man United, or if you are a neutral fan. Last season, Man United won. If you want to see the world from the good side, Tom, but for me, these odds for Man City to win 1.7 are really good, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, look, I still wouldn't touch 1.7. Like, you've really, really got to lump on to make some money from a 1.7, right? And though City are going to win this game, in my opinion, I still wouldn't be confident enough to put a big bet on to make some money out of that. So, look, briefly on Manchester United, I think that it was a solid and unspectacular performance to win at Sheffield United, as it was to beat Burnley previously, as it was to beat Brentford previously. So for all the kind of doom and gloom of the whole thing at Man United, it's 3 wins from 4. And the loss, look, it was poor against Crystal Palace, absolutely, but they aren't playing well. They're finding a way to grind out results against the mid-table teams, and 3 wins out of 4 from a couple of teams that might go down, a couple of teams that will be in mid-table. That's okay. They haven't got a flow right now. Rasmus Højlund has not hit his top gear. Marcus Rashford's not in great form. They haven't got a solution to replace Anthony and Sancho on the right-hand side. Bruno Fernandes not playing particularly well. They can't get a consistent team out because Casemiro is injured or suspended. On and on and on we go. We know the issues they've got, but they are grinding out results. And in the end, where they are right now, 15 points from the opening 9 games, it's not a bad platform to re-qualify for the Champions League, which is their only ambition. They are in the mix to finish 4th. There's no higher ambition than that for Man United this year. They aren't going to be in the top 3, which is going to be City, Liverpool and Arsenal, in my view. I don't think they'll get above Tottenham for 4th, but maybe as the season goes on, they'll improve. But the performances aren't quite there. So not all doom and gloom, but not amazing for Man City. We could look vaguely similar. Last week was a funny one against Brighton because they should have really run away with it. But at 2-0, they kind of shut it down. You know, Rodri being back was a difference maker, but Bernardo Silva and Phil Foden and Julian Alvarez didn't get up to the mark. You know, they got the second and kind of didn't do any more. I think Doku has been spectacular at left wing. I think he keeps his place. And penny for the thoughts of Jack Grealish, who's gone from maybe the second most important player at the club to coming on to replace Doku when he's tired. But such is the strength of Manchester City. How's this game go? Well, I think there's every chance that it's quite tight for a while if City do what they've done a few times recently and start really, really slowly. So I wouldn't discount this game being level at half-time. But as it goes on, I think City will get stronger and stronger and stronger. And I think to make some money here, you look at a -1 handicap for Manchester City. That brings you in at 2.88. That's pretty decent for Man City. That's a 2-0 win for Man City. That feels pretty realistic here. I don't think a goal fest, City win, and under 3.5 goals in the match brings you in at 2.75. And look at recent form. City's best player at the start of this season, Julian Alvarez, been absolutely fantastic, sitting in behind Erling Haaland. Yes, Haaland, Premier League top goal scorer with 9, but look at the combined numbers of Alvarez. 4 goals, 3 assists, vital in everything they do. So take Alvarez, not Haaland, to score and City win. That'll bring it up to around 4, and you'll make some money there.
Brilliant, Tom. We have all the information to place our bets in this match day in the Premier League 10th match day. Tell me, to finish the video, your safe bet.
Safe bet to follow on from last week's spectacular Group ACCA victory is an Arsenal victory over beleaguered bottom of the table Sheffield United.
Indeed, we got, or you got the international ACCA correct. And your Premier League ACCA?
3-team ACCA this week. Arsenal aren't in it because they don't make any difference to this particular ACCA. I found you a 6.65 treble. And I really fancy these 3 teams. They're in tough-ish games, but I quite fancy them. Tottenham to win at Crystal Palace on the Friday Night Football. Manchester City to win the Manchester Derby. But throw West Ham in there. West Ham home against Everton, a game they usually win, and I'd expect them to win. Brings it to 6.65 for a treble. You don't usually get odds as good as that for 3 favourites to win, but here you do.
Indeed, we have so many favourites, but these odds are really high. Next week, we have League Cup in the Premier League. There are some good games, by the way. West Ham, Arsenal, or Man United, Newcastle. But Tom, I will see you to analyze the next match day for the Premier League. Thank you. See you soon. Bye-bye.